Welcome back to House of Footy. It's your boy Ray, and with me I got a full house. Welcome Mac
Good evening.
and Gio.
What's good, guys?
And on today's podcast, we're going to be covering the action from this weekend's Premier League. Before we get into it, though, don't forget to follow us on our social medias, both on Twitter and Instagram. Our handle is at @house_of_footy. Also, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to us. We are on both Spotify and YouTube. Lastly, feel free to get in touch with us via email. We love hearing from you guys, and we want you guys getting involved. Our email is houseoffooty@hotmail.com. But let's get straight into it. Mac, the game that I think most of us were watching and we're very excited for, Liverpool 2, Arsenal 2. A lot riding on this for both teams involved, and ultimately, points were shared between the two teams. How did you see this game overall, Mac?
I thought, if you're looking at this from a neutral perspective, this match really gave you everything. You saw two different teams at different times perform the best to the best of their abilities. I think overall, if you were to ask me if one team edged this in terms of performance, I would say Liverpool probably played a little bit better for longer stretches, going into the end of the first half, and I would say dominate majority of the second half as well. But Arsenal definitely earlier on, if they were a little bit more clinical, could have killed this game off. So you can come out from both teams and from both teams' perspective and really kind of cut the cake any which way that you want. Overall, though, I thought that was an exciting game with lots of mistakes, a lot of great opportunities, a lot of great players. And the interesting part is I don't think either of these teams are going to come out of this fixture, even though points were shared, really satisfied, because both teams in some ways really need to pick up all 3 points. So overall, but like I said, an exciting game, and happy to talk about it.
Yeah, Geo, points were shared. Arsenal, of course, are still in first place, but that gap sort of decreases a little bit, and with a big couple of games coming for them, how did this result shape their next couple of fixtures?
Honestly, it was a great game to watch, especially as a neutral. I'm not partial to any of these teams, but this was a different Liverpool side that we saw, and it was great to see because obviously with these bigger teams, you want to see them perform at a high level, and I thought on that day they performed very well. It was nice to see Thiago back, but I think now the pressure is really on Arsenal. That it's only a 5-point lead, and you still have to play Man City, being one of your games, with Man City having a game in hand. I think, it's posted everywhere. Both teams' last few games. Who has the easier schedule, and arguably, given Man City's form as well, a lot would argue Man City. So, with Arsenal, I think there's even more pressure now. And April 26th is going to be huge for them. It's going to be important for them to really just stay focused. Again, take one game at a time. This isn't the end of the world. It's still a 5-point cushion. You can play for a draw against City, and it could still go, greatly in your favor. So right now they shouldn't panic. It was still a draw. They got points away. It wasn't like a total loss. So I think there's still definitely some positives to take out of it. But it really showed that they're far from being perfect, but they are getting there. They are getting very close to being very dominant in the Premier League. But there are blips in the road, and that day really was a blip in the road.
Yeah, no, I love how you mentioned that, Gio, because one thing that I saw from the game, especially in the first half, where Arsenal was the better team and dominating a lot of possession, especially right after they scored. I think they did very, very well to keep the ball in those periods of time, really negating any try to sort of wave that Liverpool would conjure up in response to that goal. Arsenal killed that very well, and Arteta has shown that he's coached the team very well in the way that they are able to maneuver the ball into they draw defenders into tight areas, and then they spray the ball out wide and keep switching it, using obviously trying to target different players on the opposition team, drawing them in and moving it quickly around them. And so, as you can see, especially in those times where the Anfield crowd was getting very upset, the sort of team building and the way everyone was sort of on the same page in those moments really showed how far this Arteta's team has gone. And so I just wanted to definitely point that out. Martinelli with a goal, Gabriel Jesus with a goal, Mac. Leads me to my question. Is Gabriel Jesus, in your opinion, and maybe Gio, the most technically gifted striker in the Premier League at the moment?
I would. That's a great question. In my opinion, I would definitely say he's up there because he has, I would argue, more in his locker in terms of versatility. Because even though he plays as a striker, and a lot of times you see him playing out wide on the left for Martinelli, and they are rotating in and out of position. I think one moment stands out. That was every highlight that I think everyone has seen is when the moment he like dinks it over Thiago and then does the no look pass through ball down the left hand side for Arsenal to be able to break out in the second half. And that's a player on Thiago, who's known for doing that himself. So having him get that done to him in that way, you can definitely have that argument where he's up there. I think he's very much the heir apparent to the Firmino spot that Liverpool used to play, where he has that flexibility, he has that work rate. I think those are more so his elements. And at his peak, Firmino was definitely in that conversation. So I think that's a fair question. The good part about this Arsenal team is that it's not just one player consistently that has to be able to stand out, has to have a great performance. It's more of a kind of by committee where different players are going to have their biggest games. And for that first 40 minutes, it really looked like Arsenal were, maybe not 40 minutes, maybe 35 minutes or so. Arsenal were on top. There was their game to lose. And Gabriel Jesus was a key piece of that, where he had a header that he could have scored, be able to kind of take the lead even further down the line. But unfortunately for them, those chances didn't crowd across the finish line, where they're kind of be able to take the guff, because the two goal lead really is the most dangerous, because by the end of the first half, that late goal by Liverpool was absolutely key, where you can kind of see the momentum start shifting. If Arsenal were just able to get to the halftime and kind of close that out, they could probably have more of a kind of a culture, like, mentality reset, we've made it through, kind of, we just got to deal with the first wave in the second half and move forward from there. And I think that was probably the biggest moment in the match. But to your question, though, absolutely fair to have Gabriel Jesus in that conversation.
Yeah, definitely a player that stands out for Arsenal. But Gio, and you were very vocal about this in our group chat, Mohamed Salah missed his second penalty in a row. Definitely not the season he's been expecting for himself this year. But I guess, does that kind of show where Liverpool's at? Even though Liverpool didn't lose, that's still a big, I think, concern for me being a Liverpool fan, seeing Salah miss back-to-back penalties and not really, well, apart from his goal, a lot of, what do you think?
Well, I think the announcers kind of said it best during the game, is Mo Salah could have easily had a hat-trick and then some this game. Look, I'm not going to repeat what I said in the chat. That's for the chat's eyes only. But I'm definitely not happy with Mo Salah's performances. Look, I'm not a Liverpool fan, but for you to flirt with the idea of leaving Liverpool, getting the board to pay you and break the pay structure for older players, just for you to do that, that's definitely not leading by example. There's no way that's okay for anybody who's on Fox Sports Group, Jurgen Klopp, anybody on that management team, probably felt sick that they had to break the pay structure just to see a performance like that. Should Liverpool fans feel sort of frustrated that this easily could have been a win? Yeah, I think there's definitely some frustration there. I think the player's frustrated as well, given he was the joint Golden Boot winner just last season. So, I mean, look, he still scored. Yes, he missed some opportunities, but the fact of the matter is, he is still one of your more technically gifted players. So, I mean, you kind of have to ride with him now, and hopefully he puts a couple in, later into the match weeks, and just to get that rut out. But again, for a striker, for an offensively gifted player like himself, he's just as frustrated as you are.
Yeah, no, for sure. I was quite upset about that. But Matt, you had a thought?
Well, to be honest, I'm not surprised in terms of Salah's production this year as much, I guess I'll say, as some other people, given the fact that throughout his career for Liverpool, I would ask any Liverpool fan, would you give me the argument that Mohamed Salah is clinical in the final third? I would argue majority of them would say no. He's a fantastic winger, great goal scorer, but he's generally, in terms of what he does in terms of an expected goals to goals ratio, is about even. So he's not, for example, grasping at those half chances and consistently putting them away. It's because he gets an abundance of half chances that odds are he's going to be able to put them away. As of right now, his expected goals to the Premier League is 15. He has 13. Last year, his expected goals 22. He had 23. He's generally speaking on par. So he's doing what traditionally he has done. A teeny bit of drop off, which maybe you can argue is a concern. The problem, realistically, for them is that he hasn't got a whole lot of opportunities because his team, they haven't played as well as have they done year over year. So I think you want, for the penalty, absolutely, you want to be able to you can definitely put a lot of blame at his feet for that, because odds are 80% of just under 80% of penalties go in. So you could definitely look at, hey, it's in your hands, you should have done better. But is he heavily underperforming? No, the team is, and he's been. I think that he's been more a byproduct of his team not playing well, so he's not scoring.
Yeah, no, for sure. To round off, I guess, the discussion about the game itself, I did want to mention a player who did perform very, very well as well. Ramsdale, huge saves at the end there for Arsenal. One from Salah tipping it around the post. And then obviously the Konate goal line kind of clearance where Arsenal could have gone the other way and even gotten a winner themselves. So big saves from Ramsdale there. Just wanted to bring that up.
As well as the Nunez breakaway save. I know you may not count that as a shot on target because you're just surprised to hit the target. Really, I understand that, Ray, but definitely big saves and a performance where I think he was talking about after interviews, like, do you feel like this was a 0.1 or 2 points lost? And he's like, a bit of both, because he, in his own performance, like, I'm happy I'm helped the team, but and I was able to do that. But at the same time, we definitely feel like after 2-0, still could put away. It's weird to say the man of the match was the goalkeeper that conceded 2 goals, right? So that's definitely not normal. Gio, you someone to add on to as well? He didn't get a clean sheet. Yeah. I'm sorry.
It's all right, but that's arguably one of the better buys Arsenal have done recently. 24 mil plus 6 possible on add-ons for a goaltender at this level, and to be able to make saves like that in clutch situations. It couldn't be a better deal. And I just wanted to add that it's just such a big difference having a midfielder that's able to move the ball and kind of shift with the team. And I'm referring to Thiago Silva, of course, obviously being out for quite some time. Seeing him on the pitch, having some movement in that Liverpool midfield, not just Naby Keita, who's struggling mightily, them not using Arthur Melo, Jordan Henderson, who, again, he plays very well when he sits deeper, but when he's driving, it's just not as effective. So it goes to show, once they add a little bit more into that midfield, it does change things. It does open up the pitch for them. So it only, I think Liverpool fans should really just wait till the summer, see what they can bring in terms of midfield. It might not be the huge overhaul that you guys think you'll have to go through. If they are signing the right midfielders in, I think they have a good front three that can attack very well. It's just who's feeding them the ball.
Yeah. Definitely midfield will be something that we'll be keeping an eye on for Liverpool. But Mac, maybe something that referees will be keeping an eye on will be that basically elbow that was allegedly thrown by the referee to Andrew Robertson. Was it at halftime? Do you recall what happened? I can't remember.
It was at halftime. So what happened, I think it was having an argument in regards to maybe an offside call or a throw-in call or something like that, because very early on there was a lot of contentious decisions, I felt like, because Arsenal were taking their time for certain situations and Liverpool fans were getting definitely very much on top of that, as you would, and definitely the players were resulting, I would say, every time a player went down or something like that, it started to get very, very heated towards the end of the first half, and kind of culminated in that moment with Xhaka and Trent coming together. But then what happened is at the end of the first half, as because normally what happens is the two linesmen and the center referee kind of go together to meet in the middle and then walk off. So you see Andy Robertson kind of chasing him down and getting close and in his ear. The assistant referee kind of lifted up his arms and then made contact with Andy Robertson's chin. So of course, Andy Robertson and Liverpool fans are like, "Oh, the assistant referee elbowed him." I think it's a little harsh to make it come across that way, but I think the assistant referee is definitely under review, and I think he might be kind of off work for a little bit. Be fair to say, I think that's where reports are going. I do have to say though, this has been a problem in the Premier League in terms of the treatment of referees. It's been getting worse and worse and worse. And to be honest, I don't understand why anyone wants to be a referee nowadays. And the problem is in terms of the quality of referees, people argue that they're bad, but everyone harps and trashes on referees. So anyone that could be good doesn't actually want to do it. And then it's not like they get paid a whole lot to be able to do that job too. It's not as if you're making anywhere near the same amount as the players are. So it's definitely an interesting position, and it's definitely something that I feel like the Premier League has to be able to address sooner rather than later, because situations like this with the Mitrovic, with the Bruno, with this, they're going to continue to snowball, and the much further the animosity between the players and the referees get, the more I feel like destructive it could potentially be, where you might see more situations like this going forward, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's definitely not something we want to see. But I guess let's move on away from this title talk. We just want to mention as well, Man City did beat Southampton 4-1 away to sort of gain a little bit of ground on Arsenal. But let's move on to the top four race discussion where Gio, Man U were 2-0 winners against Everton. Goals from McTominay and Martial. Very, very important there. But honestly, Everton didn't look all that great defensively in that game. What were your thoughts on that?
That's really what it boiled down to. Everton's defense didn't look sharp at all. Look, even from the McTominay goal, when Rashford had the time to move the ball around and win the ball back in those tight areas, when he had three guys surrounding him, that can't happen. That really can't happen. And you kind of almost deserve to be scored on at that point. And it's nice to see, like I said, the other offensive players are contributing apart from Marcus Rashford. That pass from Jadon Sancho, perfectly weighted. It gave McTominay a great chance. So those are the things you like to see. Those are the things I said that I wanted to see. And it happened that day. So great to see that, they're contributing other ways, and it's not just Marcus Rashford. The other boys have to pick it up in order for them to continue to succeed in, one, the Europa League, and then two, there's still a cup that they still have to play. So yeah, if they want to continue to win and secure their spot in the top four, this is going to have to continue until the end of the season.
Yeah, Mac, definitely we'll have to continue picking up those, the supporting cast, quote unquote. We'll definitely need to continue picking up that slack because Rashford did pick up a injury, and we have Man U does have a lot of games coming up. 2 games against Sevilla and the Nottingham Forest Premier League match in between that. So schedule's not slowing down at all. But it was nice seeing Eriksen come back for Man U and feature at least in this game at the end. Casemiro should be back for Sevilla in midweek, and then serving his last match on the weekend for that 4-match ban. So we'll see how that goes. But I guess another team that I wanted to mention now, Mac, is Newcastle did come back 2-1 to win at Brentford. And honestly, Brentford away is one of the tougher matches to go to. But again, Newcastle has been performing well and keep that run of form, getting those precious 3 points, keeping them in that top 4 race. What were your thoughts on that result?
I thought it was actually, in terms of gutsy performance from a team that could kind of in their position. They're 1-0 down. They had 2 penalty calls against them in the first half. Ivan Toney did kind of stick one of the 2 of them away, other than the other one being saved by Nick Pope, which was quite an easy save considering how well Ivan Toney has performed from the penalty shot. the second half when Callum Wilson comes on to be able to play a kind of a two-man striker with him and Isaac was, for me, the big turning point, because they linked very well. And from that point on, you saw much more of an attacking threat coming from this Newcastle team, which all three of us have harped on, is that this is probably the area of concern. There's really been the discussion of either or, and Eddie Howe's like, okay, we're going to kind of use each individual one depending on the given situation. But to be able to have the thought process to be able to use them both to occupy a big, physical, tough team that Brentford is, where you know their play style, they're going to hit you fast and hard, and you have to be ready for it. For them to be able to come out in the second half and pull out that performance and score a couple of really, really good goals, even though I understand the one goal was an old goal, the build-up play from it was phenomenal, and the layoff from Wilson to Isak was perfect. So you got to be able to give them a lot of credit for their performance. And I think that this is a team over the course of the rest of the season is just going to continue to grow in confidence with a performance like this, because a lot of teams this year, especially the bigger teams, have struggled against this Brentford side when they can really kind of manhandle and dominate them and kind of throw them around. So it's great to see them to be able to come out and pull out this performance here.
Yeah, another great performance from Newcastle. And lastly, to round off the sort of top four race, Gio, Spurs won at home 2-1 against Brighton, but hey, there were some very controversial decisions there, which we'll get into. But I just want to read out that the PGMOL, which is the Professional Game Match Officials Limited, the group of I guess the referee association for the Premier League, had to come out and apologize to Brighton for those missed calls. So what are your takes on that, Gio?
Look, time and time again, Spurs get away with one. Like, as soon as it happened, and of course, the incidents happened, closer to the 80th minute, and the Harry Kane went on to score in the 89th minute. And I instantly messaged my friend. I said, Spurs have to be the luckiest team on this planet. In the midst of a burning barnyard fire, they happened to get lucky and get this win. Like I said, I think I wrote it to you guys. Brighton got robbed. I think in my preview on our Instagram post, Brighton gets robbed. Like not even that they lost 3 points. It very well could have ended in a draw, and it wouldn't be this big of a talking point. But the fact that Spurs went on to win the game, and that was the deciding goal after the fact, then yeah, I think that puts extra light on this game, and that makes everybody more up in arms than they would if the game ended in a draw.
Yeah, not the best, I guess, showcase of the Premier League, and what you mentioned, Mac, there, the showcase of the refereeing for the Premier League. But I guess with all these results, have we learned anything from these teams here? Still, Newcastle, Man U occupying those third and fourth positions. But with that result, with Spurs picking up points, do we feel they still have a chance, and they should still be looked at as I guess favorites? Would you consider them at all, Mac, for contention for top four, or is it they just got lucky here? They might not get as lucky in the next upcoming games.
They for sure as hell got lucky here, because it wasn't just the one on Matoma, it was also the one on Lewis Dunk where you see his jersey pulled down by Longley, I think it was, going into a free kick. And that in itself is I think that they only apologize for the Matoma one, because how do you apologize for two pens? Like, that's just obscene. Like, you think by order, do you know how they have the idea of a makeup call sometimes? You think they would have realized the first mistake later on in the game and then given the second one no matter what, because it was a makeup call, but they didn't even do that. So if I'm Brighton, I'm throwing hands with every ref I see, which, I understand why then I guess the assistant referee for Andy Robertson, he was, he's ready to stiff arm everybody. In all reality, in my opinion, I guess because the odds are put, I think from, I actually put in our group chat for Opta analysts, is they have Tottenham finishing fourth, though that's inside inside the fourth position at 11.2%, or third at 2.8%. So they're heavy underdogs to be able to climb up from the position that they're in. So in my opinion, it's kind of, they're in probably as uphill of a battle to be able to kind of come back and get into the Champions League positions. So I'm very, very worried about them, because if you look at The results, okay, they've come and had some positive results here and there, but the performances have been very, very poor. They've really kind of only got by the skin of the teeth. And I think, as you said, in terms of how you phrased the question, is that they were lucky to get out here. And I feel like it's just a matter of time before their luck dries up, considering that they haven't been performing very well. Change of management right now hasn't really done anything for them as of yet, and it's not really kind of lit a fire under anyone's ass there. So we'll see how it goes going forward. But I'm heavily skeptical to see if they'll have any chance of kind of coming out from the position that they're in. And I think it really just is, in my opinion, just as the title race is a flip of the coin, who finishes fourth and third or fourth is a flip of the coin between Newcastle and Man U. That's where I know it may not kind of bring up the drama, but unless something happens really quickly for Spurs where they kind of tear off a couple wins by quite a lot, I think that's where the conversations should end up.
Yeah, and I maybe this will bring a smile to Gio's face, but after the next game against Bournemouth, they are away to Newcastle, at home to Man U, and then away to Liverpool. So not the easiest run into the end of the season, and that's going to definitely be a test for how well the Spurs team will do. So, guys, let's take a quick break here, and then we'll be back with some more Premier League action to talk about. So stay with us. Welcome back to Hustle Footy, guys. We're going to continue our discussion on the Premier League with some European spot contentions. And the first team we're going to talk about is Aston Villa, continuing their good run of form, getting a 2-0 win at home to Nottingham Forest. I wanted to mention here, Gio, that Unai Emery is sticking with that sort of 4-4-2. Buendia is starting as sort of like on paper as a left midfielder, I guess a left winger, but he's obviously moving inside and creating for Ollie Watkins, and Leon Bailey did start, but Traore was the player who came on for him and got that goal to open the scoring. And what was John Joe Shelby doing in that situation, trying to pass it across inside the own box in a position where, you know, the Aston Villa strikers are going to set a counter press? And so, yeah, overall, what are your thoughts on this game, Gio?
No, it was a great game. I think Villa have secretly found their identity under Unai Emery, and I think we were always kind of pushing for that. I know we've mentioned it in our podcasts that, you know, why don't they try a 4-4-2, or, you know, why do they keep consistently going for these? I know it's modern football with the wing backs, you know, getting down the pitch, crossing balls in, but sometimes you just have to go back to basics, and basics clearly work. So I think Unai has just brought in a more calming, you know, traditional type of football that isn't hard to play. It's up to the players to execute. I think they're just more calm on the field. You know, not focus too much on just the attack, keeping the defense sound, and it's kind of making, you know, Tyrone Mings and those guys look, you know, a lot better than they were early on in the season.
And of course, it's always going to help when Ollie Watkins inevitably gets on score sheet. He did get on score sheet at the end there. Great finish over Keylor Navas, just dinking it over him. Essentially the last kick of the game. But yeah, I just wanted to read out, now they are up to 6th in the Premier League, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 6th. And, you know, they could potentially make a push for those European spots, Europa League or even the Europa Conference League. And what a turnaround with their start of the season. They were one of the teams that potentially could have been relegated if they continued their poor run of form. But now, of course, they've turned it around and definitely not looking like one of those teams down at the bottom. What are your thoughts, Matt?
I think in Aston Villa, we've talked kind of glowingly about them these last couple of weeks under Unai Emery and how well they've done in terms of everyone seems to be able to understand their role, their decision to be able to move off of Ings so they can kind of thrust Ollie Watkins 100%. We're like, hey, this is your team, game in, game out. You know you're going to play, and you have to be able to perform well, and he's really shown out. I think the more concerning side is the other side of the coin for me, and the other team in this matchup was Nottingham Forest, where they haven't picked their winless in their last 8 games. I think losing 5 of them, if I remember correctly. 6 of them, sorry. 6 of the last 8, only scoring 6 goals in the last 8 games as well. Their team bereft of form right now, where it looked like for small portions of the season that they could be in that 13th range potentially and finish up the season, but at the worst time of the season, they don't have the goods up front. They've been very porous, in my opinion, and they're in a position now where unless they turn things around, considering how tight it is at the bottom, where they're going to continue kind of to snowball down in a position to be in the bottom 3, which is where I predicted them at the beginning of the season. So I'm not against seeing it. The tough part is now they've got to the point where they far exceeded the amount of goals that they conceded compared to signings, the goal difference to their signings. That was always the fun number for me to track down. But for them, it's really a position right now where they're not too sure where their goals are coming from, because you notice that some of these bottom teams they started to be able to climb out, where a team like, as they're facing Aston Villa, has kind of given the reins to Ollie Watkins, kind of having that striker where we know we're going to be able to get our goals from. That's the difference in this league, unfortunately, for a lot of these bottom teams, who has the best striker, who has the best player, who can kind of separate themselves, where we can kind of bang in an average of maybe a goal a game, where we can kind of clear out and go on a good run. Or these teams around them at the bottom, out of the Southamptons, the Leicesters, the Evertons, those teams there, they don't have that, right? And now, unfortunately, are in the same position, where they don't have that surefire way to be able to kind of create offense. They have some bright spots, but unfortunately for them, this is the worst time to go of the season to go on a poor run. And like I said, unless things change, they're definitely going to be in the drop zone.
Ooh, a big shout there. Definitely going to see how they do. But I guess talking about a team with no striker, let's move on swiftly, Gio, to Wolves 1, Chelsea 0. First game for Frank Lampard in charge in his second stint at Chelsea. And we even saw an Aubameyang sighting in this game. Exactly. So even Aubameyang couldn't do anything for Chelsea. But what were your thoughts on this game, Gio?
Look, like I said in our Instagram post, hey, nothing new here, folks. Just can't win. Again, it comes down to a new manager. Like, no matter how you say it, you know, Frank Lampard's been there, yada yada. He shouldn't know anything. These are a bunch of new guys who obviously haven't played with each other for very long. So right now he's hitting the books, trying to find the best 11 to start, or the best team to start. So it's kind of this endless cycle of, you know, you kind of give up on Graham Potter, you bring in someone, you know, interim, whether it's long term, you know, they have to again start from a blank sheet and kind of write down who are my best 11. Oh no, who is the best starting 11 I could put out as a team and compete week in, week out. So he's trying to fit, you know, square, you know, as Mac would say, square peg into round holes. Kind of not working at the moment, but you know, give him time. Obviously, you know, he can't take too much time. There's very important fixtures coming up, i.e. the Champions League. So yeah, I mean, he's gonna have to work long nights trying to figure this out. But again, give him time. Wolves, you know, happy to see Wolves doing well. You know, look, Chelsea's Chelsea. It's gonna be a long end of the season, and they'll eventually figure it out. But it's just not gonna be this season.
Yeah, no, it looked very, very tough watch as a Chelsea fan. Wolves seemed to dominate a lot more of the better chances. And even though Chelsea did eventually have more possession of the ball, which we kind of expected, it didn't look at all cohesive. Lampard did go back to a back 4, which is interesting because Graham Potter always most of the time operated with back 3. And I think that actually might be best for Chelsea, just to have a more set, kind of traditional back 4, just to keep things tidy at the back. But I don't know. It still didn't look like it worked. Raheem Sterling did start, but didn't look all that great either. Even picked up a yellow card before he was subbed off. Not looking great, but yeah, Mac, what were your thoughts on this Chelsea performance?
My recommendation for any Chelsea fans for the remainder of the season is to, if anyone asks, don't admit that you're a Chelsea fan. Don't watch the games. It's okay. Move on. Do something else with your time. You guys are playing against Saturday against Brighton. If I'm you, I either watch to try to see how enjoyable Brighton of a team are, or skip over and maybe watch the National League because you'll probably get more excitement from a Wrexham game this coming weekend. In all honesty, so they're playing porous football. They're lackluster in front of net. They're is very poor from an attacking position. There's no excitement. It seems like beroughness of joy. Where it's painful watching them. So if you're a Chelsea fan who again cares about your team and is invested in them for the do well, I can't imagine how painful it is. So I would rather just kind of move past that and do something more productive with your life. That's my recommendation. Or again, like I said, enjoy Brighton. Batoma's really good. McAllister's really good. You'll probably sign them and then do the exact same thing with happened Cucurella. It's what happens. So who knows? But for this individual game, again, it's kind of it's. We've talked so much about how Chelsea have been. The exact same thing under Lampard. It's too soon to say, of course, as Gio said. There's not much time left in the season. So I think if you're under Chelsea ownership, it's really like, who cares? Can we figure out what to do next? And talking about the problems is like beating a dead horse with a stick. It's not gonna matter. I'm sorry, Peter, but what I mean is there's no change. There's no change, and we're going to keep going in circles around here. Hopefully, there is an uptick in performance. I will not believe it until I see it, and I still probably won't believe it then. Probably need to see a couple of games of some creative actions where your expected goals is above 2, or where you're having some shots on target. Maybe a couple of them are going into the back of net. Who knows? I don't know. On the bright side, though, I do imagine that if you're a Chelsea goalkeeper in training, you're probably going to have a great time because all your teammates probably on you are missing the net or you're having easy stops. So it's all okay.
Hey, let's talk about something that was that Kepa was unable to stop in that game, and that was Matteo Nunez's banger of a goal. I'm sure you guys saw it. The audacity to take that on just inside the box on the right-hand side across the keeper. Man, what a finish. Some people, I think, were saying that Cucurella was a little too far away to defend that shot, and that might have been the reason why, but you can't fault that technique at all. That is, I think, one of the goals of the season. And man, great finish, and Wolves deserved that win just based on that goal. So let's move on now to the relegation scrap. Now, a couple of teams, as we were talking about in our preview, had very, very important games. And the first team we're going to talk about now is Leeds against Crystal Palace. Leeds, who I think were kind of getting better in the last couple of weeks, did start this game well. They did go up 1-0 through a Patrick Bamford goal, but Crystal Palace, they came back and scored 5 unanswered goals. And so my question to you, Gio, is should we just relegate Leeds now that they conceded 2 Jordan Ayew goals? How do you concede 2 goals to Jordan Ayew? And are they allowed to stay in the league now? What do you think, Jim?
I think if they weren't going to be relegated, I think they should get a point penalty and just join Southampton. Because how do you let Jordan Ayew, a player of his age, a player of his skill, still score on you like that? So shocking if I'm a Leeds fan, if I'm Jack Harrison, if I'm Calvin Phillips, I would wish that I had nothing to do with Leeds ever. So tough loss for Leeds, but great performance from Crystal Palace. It really clicked in terms of offensively. Everybody getting the movement was very good to watch. As a we already know how gifted he is. Olise, we already know how gifted he is. It's just cohesively, they kind of want to fight for themselves now in terms of being on the team, not just looking good on paper and actually going out there and perform.
Yeah, I wanted to mention as well, Olise, definitely a standout player in that game. Essentially involved in everything, had a part in I think at least 2 assists in that game, and so for a team that just a few weeks ago couldn't get a shot on target, this is definitely a big turnaround. And I think, Mac, it's fair to say that we didn't expect Crystal Palace to go, and they had an easier run of form now, and we would expect them to pick up points. But this is definitely a welcoming sight for Crystal Palace, getting a convincing and big result away from home. What are your thoughts on that?
So Elise, to confirm, he did have. I think he had 3 assists throughout the game, and I think now he's in terms of his age, he's up there on the top of not just in the Premier League but in the world, considering how well he's playing. So it's great to see him as a combined, especially with injuries to Zaha. I don't recall if it was in this game or the last game that he came off injured. So for them just to be able to perform very, very well, those two that have been looked at as much as the kind of the future, technically providing goals going forward for this Crystal Palace team under Roy Hodgson. Understand Roy Hodgson's only there for a short time period, but he really knows these boys. He helped recruit them, help be able to give them an implementation of a style that's going to make them successful. So to come back off of from their position, back-to-back wins against Leicester and Leeds in both in relegation battles, absolutely key. They're tuning up to face Southampton next, so at that 3 points we can argue to be close to being on the board for them. So overall, they got to be extremely happy with how things have been going. And like you guys had said, if IU is getting on the score sheet, anything is possible for that team, right? So overall, I feel like you got to be very happy if you're a Crystal Palace fan, and hopefully, especially like I said, I think all of us, and maybe even me, I'm definitely trying to lead the fan club for both Eze and Elise for Crystal Palace, so it's glad to see them doing well, and hopefully for them, they continue to do that for the rest of the season.
Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't expect anything else from them, but Leeds definitely will definitely need to look to bounce back from that result, given they are at home to Liverpool next in the league, which we'll definitely preview in our next podcast. But let's move on now to Leicester. Leicester, Mac, a game against Bournemouth that they, as you put it, was a must-win for them. They actually did lose at home to Bournemouth, and that definitely not the way they would have wanted this game to go, especially with the goal being a mistake from Maddison. And really, apart from that, not able to create enough to score. Worrying signs for Leicester here, because potentially this team now could be relegated. And as we kind of expected, even if they didn't get relegated, a lot of these players will move on from this Leicester team. So what were your thoughts on that, Matt?
That was absolutely concerning. I called it going into the game where this was a must-win for them in relegation opponents against Bournemouth, where Bournemouth, I would argue, quality-wise, are a much poorer side. This Leicester team has a lot of quality in them, and they have the potential to play very, very well, considering the names they have on the team sheet. Unfortunately, luck didn't go this way. James Maddison kind of made a costly mistake and ended up deactivating his Twitter after the game. So you know how much this is hurting the team, where they know how important of a result this was. And to pull out, not even to get a point, but to drop all 3 points, puts them in a position where now they've stretched out from the pack above them, where now they're, I think, 3 points off of relegation right now. So it's not just one week where a lot of these teams are in a position where, okay, if we just pull out 1 week, we can kind of stretch away potentially from the pack. They've gone the other way. So this was definitely a costly mistake from Maddison, a costly performance from the team, and it's tough to see them considering the games they're coming thick and fast, and sooner rather than you think the season's going to be over. So they need to turn things around now. Otherwise, in all likelihood, as the odds are having it right now, they're probably going down. So they need to, like I said, do something about that. I think they did appoint. It was what was the Aston Villa manager? They just appointed the new manager.
Dean Smith.
Yes. They brought him on, who didn't end up having the best run of form under management for Aston Villa. I think it was last season. So it'll be interesting to see what type of impact he could have potentially for this team going forward. But like I said, they have so few, right now there's so few games, everything feels like a cup final which is crazy to say, almost half the league, where and that's exciting for Premier League fans, but for Leicester themselves, they got to be very worried.
Yeah, for sure. But on the flip side, like you said, Mac, Bournemouth are up to 30 points now, and just 3 points above the relegation zone. And got to hand it to Gio. He called it a team that lost 9-0 this season and was touted as definitely one of the teams to go down, is now, I would kind of say, overperforming and even getting important results here. Gio, what are your takes on this Bournemouth team? They do have Spurs next, and anything could happen there. What are you? I guess, do you give them a chance to stay up?
Oh, absolutely. I think again, they love scoring against bigger teams, and they're very capable. I think teams always underestimate a team that's, in and out of the relegation zone. Look, they were close. The other time they faced Spurs, they lost it late. But again, if they can do that and kind of limit their mistakes and understand where they went wrong the first time. Again, very capable. I still think the Spurs team is very shaky. Throughout front, middle, and back. So yeah, I think it's very capable. Like even if they don't win, they can very well fight for a draw, and that definitely works in their favor.
Yeah, at this point, all essentially any points you pick up from this point to the season to the end, very, very vital, as there's so many teams down there at the bottom battling it out. So we'll definitely keep an eye out on that. But for now, guys, this concludes our podcast for today. If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe to us on our social medias. That's at @houseof_footy. If you have any comments, suggestions, or general banter, get in touch with us via email as well, houseoffooty@hotmail.com. The next time you hear from us will be Friday, when we review the Champions League games and Europa League games that are taking place midweek. And as well, we'll preview the weekend action from the Premier League. But until then, thank you, Mac.
Peace out.
Thank you, Gio.
Peace out, guys.
See you guys soon.